I did. Yes, I did. I can't believe I did
She was an honors student with a high IQ and a promising future. She was young, photogenic, and possessed a self-assuredness that bordered on the divine. But today, Shayna Hubers isn't known for her academic achievements or her striking looks. She is known for what she did in an interrogation room while the man she loved lay dead in a pool of his own blood. She didn't cry.
I killed my boyfriend in self-defense. What did you kill him with? A gun, a loaded gun in the house.
She didn't scream for help. Instead, she danced. She twirled. She sang, "I did it. I killed him."
I did. Yes, I did.
And then, she made a comment so cold it froze the blood of seasoned detectives. She claimed she gave him the nose job he always wanted, with a .38 caliber bullet. Now, Shayna Hubers is trapped inside the Kentucky Correctional Institution for Women, a facility that has been under the microscope for years. We're talking about a prison where a culture of silence has masked allegations of staff misconduct, where the infrastructure is crumbling, and where the summer heat turns concrete dormitories into pressurized ovens. Some say the death penalty is the ultimate punishment. But for someone like Shayna Hubers, a woman whose entire world was built on vanity, intellectual superiority, and the need for an audience, the reality of her current existence is something far more haunting. It is the slow, systematic erasure of the self. By the end of this video, you'll understand why 40 years in a facility like KCIW is considered by some to be a psychological death sentence. You'll see the interrogation footage that shocked a nation, and you'll learn how the Golden Girl of Lexington became a cautionary tale about the intersection of obsession, narcissism, and a justice system that eventually stopped listening. Stay with us, because the girl who danced in that police station, she's being buried alive by time. Before we step into the apartment on that fateful October night, I want to welcome you to the channel. We dive deep into the cases that the mainstream news often skims over, looking at the psychology and the hidden realities of the American justice system. If you're someone who looks for the why behind the headline, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of truth seekers. We're growing every day, and I'd love to have you with us for the journey. And while you're down there, I'm curious, where are you tuning in from today? We have viewers from all over the world, and seeing where you guys are watching from reminds us that these stories of justice and human nature resonate everywhere. Drop your location in the comments. I'd love to see how far this story is reaching. Now, let's go back to 2012. Let's look at the moment the Golden Girl of Kentucky pulled the trigger and changed everything. October 12, 2012. Highland Heights, Kentucky. It was a Friday night, the kind of night where the air is crisp and the weekend feels full of possibility. Ryan Poston, a 29-year-old attorney with a burgeoning career and a reputation for kindness, was at his condominium. He was getting ready for a date, but it wasn't a date with Shayna Hubers. For months, Ryan had been trying to untangle himself from Shayna. Friends described the relationship as a revolving door of drama. Shayna was brilliant, yes, but her love was a suffocating thing. It was a love that arrived in the form of 74 text messages in a single day. It was a love that showed up uninvited at 3 a.m. Ryan was a man who valued peace, and Shayna Hubers was a hurricane. That night, Ryan was supposed to meet Audrey Bolt, a former Miss Ohio. He was moving on. He was finally stepping out of the storm, but Shayna wouldn't let the sun set on that version of reality. At approximately 8:50 p.m., neighbors heard the pops, 6 of them, not the sound of a car backfiring, but the unmistakable rhythmic cracks of a handgun. When the police arrived at the blood-spattered condo, the scene was horrific. Ryan Poston was slumped on the floor near his kitchen table. He had been shot 6 times. One bullet had struck him in the face, disfiguring the features he was known for. And there was Shayna. Most people in that situation would be in shock. They would be inconsolable. But as the body camera footage rolled, the world got its first glimpse into the mind of Shayna Hubers. She was calm, she was talkative, she was analytical. "He's very vain," she told the officers, her voice eerily steady. "He's an attorney, he's very into his looks." She spoke about him in the present tense, even as his pulse had already vanished. She told the police she killed him in self-defense, claiming he had been abusive. But her actions in the hours that followed didn't look like those of a battered woman. They looked like the actions of a performer who had finally secured the lead role in a tragedy. In the interrogation room, left alone for a few moments, Shayna began to pace. She began to twirl. She looked at herself in the two-way mirror, adjusting her hair, checking her reflection. She sang out loud, "I killed him, I killed him, I did it." She wasn't worried about Ryan. She was worried about her future, but in a strangely narcissistic way. She asked the detectives if she would still be able to get a cell phone in jail. She wondered if she would ever find a husband now. And then came the nose job comment. She told investigators that Ryan had always wanted a nose job, so she shot him in the face to give him one. It wasn't a slip of the tongue, it was a boast. It was the intellectual victory of a woman who felt she had finally won the argument by having the last word, and the last shot. The trial would later reveal that Shayna had planned this. She had told friends she was going to take Ryan to a shooting range so she could learn how to kill him. She had turned his death into a project. But as the handcuffs clicked shut, Shayna Hubers didn't realize that her brilliance had just walked her into a trap. She thought she was the smartest person in the room. She was about to spend the next 4 decades in a room where her IQ meant absolutely nothing.
He had put his arm across the table, and there's a lamp, and he had put his arm across the table and had it in my face and was screaming at me at the top of his lungs after he had thrown me around the room, and was saying emotionally to me, "You're a f***ing hillbilly. I f***ing hate you. I hate everything about you for what you are, and my family hates you." And he was screaming it, and he had his hand on the table, and he wasn't completely standing up. He was like this. He was sitting, he was enough that when I shot him, he went like this. Literally. That's when I knew he was dead. Or close to it, and twitching. And I couldn't, I let him, I still, even though it hurt, I still, enough of me, loved him. That I couldn't stand to watch him twitch. I knew he was going to die or have a completely deformed face. He's very vain. One of our last conversations we had that was good was that he wants my best friend who's a dentist to do his veneers and wants to get a nose job. Just that kind of person. And I shot him right here. I gave him his nose job. He wanted. I broke it.
To understand the tragedy of Ryan Poston, you have to understand the psychological labyrinth Shayna Hubers constructed long before she ever picked up a gun. In the media, she was often portrayed as a jilted lover, but those who knew her saw something far more clinical. They saw a woman who didn't just want a boyfriend, she wanted a possession. Shayna was an honors student at Morehead State University. She was a woman who prided herself on being the smartest person in the room. But in her personal life, that intelligence was weaponized. While other 21-year-olds were navigating the excitement of early adulthood, Shayna was obsessively documenting her relationship with Ryan like a research project. She wasn't just clingy. She was a digital ghost, haunting his phone with dozens of messages an hour. When Ryan tried to distance himself, when he stopped answering the phone or tried to gently suggest they see other people, Shayna's response wasn't sadness. It was escalation. She would show up at his condo unannounced, sometimes hiding in the shadows of the hallway just to see if he was alone. But the most disturbing part of this story isn't the stalking. It's the warning signs the world ignored because of how Shayna looked and how she spoke. Months before the murder, Shayna reportedly told a friend that she was going to take Ryan to a shooting range. She didn't say she wanted to learn a hobby. She said, "I'll kill him and play like it's an accident." People laughed it off as a dark joke from a dramatic girl. But Shayna Hubers didn't do jokes. She did plans. When the trial began in 2015, the courtroom in Campbell County became a stage for one of the most bizarre legal defenses in Kentucky history. Shayna's lawyers argued self-defense, claiming Ryan was a Jekyll and Hyde character who had pushed her and thrown her around. But as the prosecution began to play the interrogation tapes, the battered woman narrative disintegrated. The jury watched a woman who seemed more concerned about her hair than the man's contrast that just shot 6 times. They heard her talk about Ryan's vanity with a smirk. They heard the nose job comment, delivered with a chilling academic detachment. The in that courtroom was heartbreaking. On one side, you had Ryan Poston's family, distinguished, grieving, and forced to listen to the intimate, agonizing details of their son's final moments. On the other side, you had Shayna, who often appeared bored or dismissive. Even when she was eventually found guilty, the drama didn't end. A juror was discovered to be a convicted felon, leading to a mistrial and a second, grueling legal battle. It took years for the finality of justice to land. During the second trial in 2018, more details emerged about her jailhouse behavior. Fellow inmates testified that Shayna didn't act like someone remorseful. She acted like a celebrity. She allegedly bragged about her fame and continued to mock the man she killed. In the end, the judge didn't hold back. He sentenced her to life in prison, later finalized at 40 years before she's even eligible for parole. But here is where the story takes a turn that most news reports miss. Because while the courtroom drama ended, the true punishment was just beginning. Shayna Hubers was about to be dropped into an environment where her high IQ and her beauty wouldn't just be ignored. They would be targeted. Cases like this force us to look at the red flags we often miss in the people we love. Before we move into the final chapter, where we look at the documented hell of the prison where Shayna now lives, I want to hear from you. Do you think someone who shows that level of detachment in an interrogation room can ever truly be rehabilitated? Or is the 40-year sentence just a way of waiting for the clock to run out on a person who was born without empathy? Drop a comment below with your thoughts. I read as many as I can, and your insights often help shape our next deep dives. And if you're finding this breakdown of the Hubers case compelling, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us keep these stories alive and ensures you don't miss our next exploration into the darker side of the human mind.
I don't know if anyone will ever want to marry me if they know that I killed a boyfriend in self-defense. It's not funny, but the stuff he was saying to me was so abusive while he was throwing me around the room. I'll never forget this. I think in the midst of that, my love turned to hate, and I remember screaming, reaching up to grab his shirt. You, how dare you mock my family? How dare you talk poorly of my mother and my family? If I don't get any serious consequences, then I could really be happy just having a career and maybe not even ever getting married, because it's very traumatic, It's very traumatic for me to live with it. I have to know that I did that for someone that I told every day, I love you. How sweet the sound that sings I'll be right back. Thank you. I did. Yes, I did. I cannot believe I did that.
It was so painful to watch him die and to know that I had done that. That I just walked around the table and shot him where I knew he would die immediately and fast. His obsession with guns killed him. You know, I would have never, I'm so Democrat, I would have never touched a gun in my life until I dated him. His big thing was, let's go to the range and go shooting. You know, very Republican. His parents made fun of me last night because I was Democrat. You know, I needed Democrat ability today.
Shayna Hubers walked into the Kentucky Correctional Institution for Women, KCIW, in Pewee Valley, as a woman who believed she was the protagonist of a grand, tragic movie. She was 27 years old at the time of her final sentencing, still young, still articulate, still clinging to the honor student identity that had shielded her for so long. But KCIW is not a university campus. It is a world of gray concrete, razor wire, and a hierarchy that doesn't care about your GPA. This facility has a troubled history. For years, investigators and advocacy groups have raised alarms about the conditions inside. We're talking about an environment where the infrastructure is aging, and the summer months turn the dormitories into sweltering pressure cookers. In Kentucky, humidity isn't just uncomfortable. Inside a prison with inadequate climate control, it becomes a form of physical assault. For someone like Shayna, who was once obsessed with her appearance and her physical comfort, the transition to a world of thin mattresses, communal showers, and industrial-grade soap is the beginning of a sensory death. But the physical degradation is only half the story. The true hell for a narcissist is anonymity. Psychologists who study long-term incarceration and high-functioning inmates speak of a phenomenon called identity erosion. For Shayna Hubers, her entire sense of self was built on being seen. In the interrogation room, she danced because there was a camera. In the courtroom, she performed because there was a jury. In prison, that audience is gone. At KCIW, she is inmate number 270,140. She wears the same polyester uniform as everyone else. She eats the same starch-heavy meals. The intellectual superiority she used to gaslight Ryan Poston has no currency here. In fact, in the yard, being the smartest person in the room often makes you a target rather than a leader. The beauty she bragged about is being systematically weathered by the stress of the environment and the passage of time. And then there is the endless loop. Shayna is eligible for parole in 2052. She will be 61 years old. Think about that timeline. She will spend the prime of her life, her 30s, 40s, and 50s, in a facility where every day is an exact replica of the one before. The same wake-up call, the same head count, the same walls. For a mind that thrives on stimulation and control, this sameness acts like acid. It slowly eats away at the memories of who you used to be until the golden girl of Lexington is nothing more than a ghost. And while Shayna navigates this loop, the ghosts of her past remain stationary. Ryan Poston will never turn 30. He will never practice law again. He will never have the family he was moving toward when he tried to end things with Shayna that October night. His family carries the weight of his absence, while Shayna carries the weight of her own existence. She is trapped in a prison of her own making, both literally and figuratively. She thought she was giving Ryan a nose job that would end the argument. Instead, she performed a surgical strike on her own future. The woman who danced in that interrogation room doesn't exist anymore. There is only number 270,140, waiting for a 2052 that may never feel like freedom. The story of Shayna Hubers is a chilling reminder that the most dangerous weapon isn't always a gun. It's an ego that refuses to be bruised. It's a case that leaves us wondering if the current prison system is designed to fix a mind like hers, or if it simply acts as a warehouse for the consequences of a life lived without empathy. If this deep dive into the psychology of Shayna Hubers and the reality of KCIW gave you a new perspective on this case, please hit that like button. It truly helps the channel grow and allows us to keep producing these long-form documentaries. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on all notifications. We have a series coming up on other high IQ offenders and the specific psychological traps they fall into once they are behind bars. You won't want to miss it. What do you think is the ultimate punishment for someone like Shayna? Is it the loss of freedom or the loss of her identity? Let's talk about it in the comments. Until next time, this is America's Untold Crimes. Stay vigilant, because the person sitting across from you might be playing a much darker game than you realize.
I did. Yes, I did. I can't believe I did that.
It is so painful to watch him die and to know that I had done that. That I just walked around the table and shot him where I knew he was done immediately and fast. His obsession with guns killed him. You know, I would never, I'm so Democrat, I would have never touched a gun in my life until I dated him. His big thing was, let's go to the range and go shooting. And we were Republican. His parents made fun of me last night because I was Democrat. And then I needed to Democrat and vote each other. This is going to cost me a lot of money. Get me into 28 seats. You don't have a lot of money. It's going to be tough. So I feel like I'm automatically they want you to go to prison if they don't believe in the story or if they don't. Because of course they're not going to. Yeah, that was my kid. I don't know how to think of it. If they want you to go death penalty or prison for life. I don't know how my dad. Only I do. And I feel like my character should be looked at as for the people that know him and know me should be able to come speak and feel like Shayna's a good person. Like he didn't have sons. One of the last things he said to me, one of the last things I said to him before he died was, you don't have any friends. So the last thing that he said that wasn't making fun of me, that was about himself, was, I don't have any friends, I don't care to. How sweet the sound they say, thank you. me. Yeah, I did. Oh, my God. I feel bad for the family. I feel bad for the sisters, you know, down the line. I genuinely feel terrible for the family. I feel awful. I don't think I should ever have to offer about them. That's because I don't have to believe in them. I don't think I believe in them. But I don't myself. Nobody asked me to talk to them. You know, but they're willing to do what happened. And I'm going to really don't give you a of having statements because they're in awkward position, you know. And I'm terrified. Well, Kentucky. Let's go. Never mind. And so we'll, yeah. I went to high school in the UK.